Morning. Okay. Stencil. Okay. She saw this. She immediately came over here and started painting on her projects. And she was like, oh, we've got new stencils. And I'm like, you're right. We do. We made a new stencil this morning.
Mommy, I didn't say that. I said.
What did you say?
I said matches this.
That's not what she said. She goes, oh my gosh, we have new stencils.
I didn't say it. You say it.
Whatever. So yes, we do have a new stencil. So the mock-up for this one just says my last name. I wanted you to see that it can be personalized, but I don't necessarily want to put my last name on this. So I think what I'm going to do is put the word hello on it. So if you're watching, I want you to say good morning. If you're here with me live, if you're catching the replay, make sure you say #replay. We've got a treat in this design today. So I have my blank from Home Creations Milling and Signage. If you did not know, we have switched my entire shop blank-wise. So all your blank needs are going to come from Home Creations Milling and Signage. We just, around the interwebs, we just call them Home Creations. And you can get them in any size between the size of 4 inches to 24 inches. This, I believe, is a 22-inch with, hold on, rails. So I'm going to show you how to use these rails. A lot of people see the option for rails, but they really don't know what it is. So I figured, why don't I show you? So this is going to be a 2-part series. Today, we're going to be painting. So nobody's talking to you, oh girl. Has anybody? She drives me crazy. She is the best thing that's ever happened to me organization-wise, but she is the most annoying best friend in your digital thingies, right? So we've got the Firefly truck bed. This is in the shop. I uploaded it this morning. It's an older design from a couple months ago that I just forgot to upload, but it is in the shop. You can get the template, the JPEG, or you can order blanks from Home Creations Milling and Signage. And today we're going to jam pack a bunch of little techniques in this. We are going to paint. I'm just telling them what's going on. So we are going to jam pack a bunch of little tidbits in this one. Hey, Terry. Hey, Diana. Hey, Wanda. What y'all doing today? So we are going to put, this is yellow. I believe it's lemon yellow. I think I opted for, yeah, this is lemon yellow. And magenta, all deco art colors, If you want the paint list for this design that I'm doing today, put the word Firefly in the comments. The word Firefly will get you all the links to all the things, the blank, the template, the JPEG, and it will also get you the color list. So if you would like the color list to this, just put the word Firefly in the comments. As we're painting it, you just got to put it once. I'll come back in and link it to everybody. Let me get my paint rag because we're going to need it today. I get a lot of questions about my paint rag. They're just mainstays. Nobody's talking to you. No, stop it. Quit listening to me. It's all the places. I don't know who said her name, but she thinks someone's talking to her. So I've got lemon yellow and magenta. And yes, you can base coat everything white to make everything pop. We're skipping that step today. So I'm putting the lemon yellow on the bottom.
Mommy.
Yes. And I'm just going back and forth.
Mommy, that's not the bottom.
About a ½ inch up and down.
That's not the bottom.
Raylan Marie, paint yours and I'll paint mine. How about that?
That's the top.
Well, you know, it's the bottom of the window. We're focusing on the window right now. Oh.
You are ew.
You are ew.
You are ew.
So we've got that going. So that's step number 1. Super easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Now, this color is over here in the rear view mirror. So don't forget to do your rear view mirrors, okay? So all I'm doing is I'm just messy painting this over here. Doesn't have to be perfect.
I'll go get
it. It goes on real quick. Nothing super special about that. But you don't want to miss these rear view mirrors because they're really hard to fussy paint an ombre into something.
My brush.
Did you drop your brush, baby girl? There you go.
And I almost fell.
You did almost fall because you weren't getting off of the chair properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least you'll admit it. So all I'm doing is I'm just going back and forth about a half an inch from where I started. So I start my brush here, right? So I'm going to go 1, 2, and I'm going to go back and forth, and I'm going to go down about a half an inch and go back up about a half an inch. That's the easiest way you can ombre.
I got yellow too.
Hey, what you doing? Good morning. I'm painting while husband is in quarantine. Debbie, I am so sorry. Oh, I almost put that in my drinking water. I'm so sorry. You know, to me, I love one being in quarantine. I don't know what he's in quarantine for, but I know a lot of us have spent a lot of time in quarantine over the last 2 years. And I learned, even though quarantine can be very, very hard on everyone involved, it could also be very stressful because now you've got 2 people's jobs coming down to the only one that's not in quarantine, right? It could also be, okay, so as I'm jabbing, let me move on to the next color. We have Purple Rain. So we're going to put Purple Rain and Magenta on our brush now. And I'm just putting about, a dime size worth of paint on my palette of each one. You don't need a lot of paint to do this one window. But I will say, when we were in quarantine, because I don't get a lot of quiet time. You gotta remember, I got 2 kids of different ages in this house. I've got a dog that likes to defend our honor at all times. And then I also have a husband that as soon as he comes home, he wants to tell me everything about his day, which is super sweet. But also, by the time he gets home, I'm like, yay, I can go take me a bath and get ready for my night. Now, if y'all notice, I'm running out of paint because my wood is soaking it up. Let me show y'all a trick while I'm talking. You're going to take some blending gel, and you're going to put it on your brush, okay? You're just going to dab your brush in blending gel, not with paint on it, although I just did. And you're going to pick up your paint with that blending gel on your brush.
Hey, I want blending gel.
See how it went so much further?
I want blending gel in lemon yellow.
Okay, well, hold on one second.
Colors.
Hold on one second. Let me get this off my brush so it doesn't dry funny. I need to work it in. There we go. She wants lemon yellow. Even though, baby, you have yellow. Here, I'll put it next to your other yellow so you can see the difference in them. And then you want a little bit of blending gel?
Yeah.
There you go.
Can I smell it?
Can I smell it?
It doesn't smell like lemons.
So I'm just blending gel and Magenta and Purple Rain. Okay. And if my paints aren't going as far, I put a little bit of blending gel on my brush, and then I load it up with my paints.
Do you see my blending gel?
Do you see my blending gel? I do, baby girl.
You are not my blending gel. Hey, Mommy, I want colors like that.
I will teach you how. Okay, and then I'm going to clean my brush because I need to get that magenta out of my brush. And we're going to go next step. Now, this is the part that I was having trouble with. I need
blue.
A good coverage blue for my sky.
Actually, that looks like blanket blue.
And I think this is going to be it.
It's blanket blue. It's blanket blue.
It's blanket blue?
Yeah.
What is blanket blue? This is vivid blue.
No, it's blanket blue.
It's blanket blue, apparently, according to Raylynn. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Michelle. Thank y'all for spreading the good word that we are live today. So I'm loading up my brush with the blending gel. I'm dipping my brush half in the Purple Rain, half in the Vivid Blue. Okay. And I'm putting Purple Rain on top of Purple Rain. Okay. And I'm going up and down. I'm going down about a half an inch. I'm going up about a half an inch. I start a good stripe going, and then I go down a half an inch, and then I go back to middle, and then I go up a half an inch. And that's how you get a good ombre without having to constantly do your base coats, come back and do a... wash
Ooh,
your brush a
like,
million times. I mean,
like.
you do wash your brush a good bit.
Mommy, I want colors like that too.
Well, baby, I'm going to have to sit down and show you how to do this.
I want that blanket.
Okay, so we have one little spot where my paints were not completely...
Mommy, give me that color.
Where my paints were not completely...
No,
No, baby. No, remember, Mommy's in control of the paint.
No, I am.
Yeah, well, that's not going to fly with Mommy. We have one spot where my paint was not completely dry, which none of this was completely dry. This is one technique you need to work wet on wet. A lot of my techniques are you dry in between steps and coats, but this is a wet on wet. So there was one little spot. Oh, be careful not to get your paintbrush on Mommy's project, okay?
I did.
So I'm not too worried about it on this particular design. I can put a Firefly there and be completely happy with the end result. No big deal. But there, if you ever get a spot like that, all you do is you start from that step and work your way back up. Let's see. Debbie, he came home from firefighting conference and he put on last week in Tennessee and tested positive. Oh, I guess sooner than later it was bound to happen. Right? I'm sorry. I hope that he's at least feeling okay because I know a lot of people that have it they just feel fine. They're just positive. You know what I mean? Like they're just positive and probably don't feel the best, but they are. I hope he's not like seriously ill. You know what I mean? I'm glad I'm up this morning to catch you live. Normally I'm sleeping. Oh, Michelle, I'm glad you're here to hang out with me too.
Mommy,
what, baby?
I think this is a dream.
You think this is a dream?
Yep.
Now, because I use blending gel, I'm going to really make sure that I dry all of this really good because we're about to splatter paint the mess out of this. Again, I'm not too worried about this spot. You can really start to see it once it dries. See how it kind of pops back up a lot more now that it's dry? So I really need to hook up my other blow dryer. That's not as loud. All right, so I need white. Let me grab my white paint. That's not white paint. That is brush cleaner, but I do need brush cleaner in my. I forgot to put
I need white.
Okay, I'll get you some white. Y'all, stand by for a second. I need to put some brush cleaner in my.
Mommy, can I have
this is just the pink soap. I've bounced between pink soap and the crud cutter.
I want that. I want that.
We can put this in your brush water. This goes in your brush water. Makes your brush water smell good. I love the smell of this. It also keeps your paint from sticking to your brush as bad. If you put it in your brush water as you clean, it's like you're giving it a nice little pre-rinse before you actually go and clean it. You want to clean your brushes every time you use them or every time you change your paint water, clean your brushes. It doesn't take but a minute. And lay them flat to dry on a towel. A lot of people will just lay them to dry on the counter. No, put a towel underneath it because that towel, like I washed hers about 15 minutes before we went live and I put a towel underneath it. That towel drew the water out of the brush. So you really want to put a towel underneath it.
Mommy,
I'm working on the gnome behind you. I love this little gnomes. Okay, here's
brushes.
No, those are my brushes. No. You have your brushes. Your brushes are in here.
Those are your brushes.
Those are your brushes. Look, there's all your brushes right there. There's your big brushes.
Polka dot brush. Hey!
I'm putting it there to dry.
Yeah.
Calm it down. Calm it down. All right, so we're going to.
Stencil.
No, you don't need a stencil.
I do.
Quit being distracting.
I need stencil.
That's black.
I need.
Can't see. I'm grabbing blind here. That's white.
Yeah, I need white. That would be great.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Let's get you some white.
Right there.
Yeah, we'll put you some right there.
I mean right here.
Nope, you got enough right there. You got some going. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to get a dot of white, okay? Just a dot of white. About a pea-sized amount of paint.
Is this Snow White? Is this snow?
Actually, yes, it is Snow White. I use Snow White, Warm White. What's the other? White Wash, which is a really light consistency. It's not an opaque. It's not as opaque. So I'm going to take a brush with a good bit of water in the bristles. Usually I tell you to dry your brush really good. When you do splatter paint, you want to make sure your bristles are they're dipped. They're just the tip of them are dipped in the water, and you bring that water to your paint you start to drag your paint inside your brush. We're going to grab a brush. I like to use the brushes that have the rubber handle for this technique. So you just need one that has it. And you take your brush that has paint in it. Oh, you know what I need to do?
Come on, I got a great
This might
idea.
help you a little bit better.
I got a great idea.
You start tapping.
I got a great idea, Mommy.
I don't think and this goes everywhere, so don't do it around your favorite things that you don't want paint on.
I want to try.
We will do this together a little later, okay?
I want to do.
And then.
Mommy, smell like brush now. Smell like brush now.
It smells like brush soap. And you want to make sure you come over.
Can I
get your rear view mirrors, okay?
Can I do it on
Here,
mine?
hold. Yes, you can do it one time on yours. And then, all right. Good job, baby. This is going everywhere. Okay, good job.
Sparkly.
Sparkly. I have this one spot. It's going to drive me crazy. There we go.
It looks like snow.
The harder you hit at a shorter distance, the bigger the splatters. The softer you hit, the smaller the splatters. So I'm going to put that back in my brush, Caddy. Now, all these little splatters that got on the part without paint, I just kind of brush those flat so that you don't see them. They're really not going to be seen. I just kind of smooth them out so that they don't create like a little bit of a peeky-boo of texture underneath. We're going to take our blow dryer, blow dry those spots. So you want to use light airflow, only because it's wet. Remember, we put a lot of water in there, so they will kind of starburst out if you don't. I never received the free gnome from the other day. Oh my gosh, Marla. Okay, so the email that you put in to the thing is the email that it's going to go to. You do have to check your spam. Remember, this is going to be the very first email that you receive, because I changed over email services. So it's going to be the very first one. So if you didn't receive your gnome the other day, check your spam folder. It's going to be there. But if you want, I can put the word gnome in the comments and I'll resend it. Ooh, Terry, I almost got gray. The only reason I got the beige was because I knew I was going to use an off-white for him. But the gray would have looked really good too on the gnome. So Terry's painting this gnome back here. And I'll show you him at the very end of the tutorial. Terry is painting our freebie gnome for the month. So for the month of June, you're done? Okay, baby, thank you. You're being rude. If we painted him earlier this month, and for the month of June, he's a free template. He is like this part of the gnome. And you can use the beard. You can get really creative with the beard. I showed you how to use really chunky yarn to make a textured beard for him. And we're going to be using this template many times. So you're going to want it in your arsenal of template designs that you've got stored over there. So if you put the word gnome, I'll link the gnome template for you there. Remember, if you put was it Firefly? Was it Firefly, y'all? With the word Firefly, you get all the links to this design. This design is in the shop, and it is over at Home. Oh, it's beautiful, baby. It is over at Home Creations for wood blanks. Are you done painting for right now? Okay. You got to go play, okay? Okay. Okay, so our next step, now that we've got our ombre windows going on, the next step we want to do is the truck. Let's go ahead and paint the truck, and then we'll paint our mason jar, okay? So let's get a good angle brush out, a good wide angle brush to base coat. We don't necessarily want to use a massive brush to base coat this, because really we're just base coating this section. Hold on, let me kind of tilt y'all up just a little bit. There we go. We're just base coating this section, but it's a lot of little parts. So right there, we want to brush that so I can get into that part right there, but do it well. So I'm going to move all of her stuff down here. That way we have a little bit more room. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I think we're going to use this vivid blue. I think we're going to use the vivid blue, and then we will shade a darker color. We will actually, let me test drive something real quick. I have this Royal Navy. If it's got a good coverage, we may use the Royal Navy just because it's already a shade darker. Yeah, let's use the Royal Navy. Let's use the Royal Navy. Okay, so I'm going to, up on the chisel, every time I say that, up on the chiseled edge, I'm just going to draw the outline of this window. So that way I have a good 1/4 inch of a buffer so I don't overpaint that window. So like I said, this is going to be a 2-part series. This is going this part we're painting the design, right? The next time you see this design, we're going to be using these wreath rails. We're going to be adding to it. And I'm thinking that may be next Monday. I think next Monday we're going to do 2 weeks worth of summer designs here. And this is the first one. This is summer nights. I want to give you some good summer nights because this is the first week of summer. Tuesday marks the official first day of summer, the season of summer here in the U.S. So I figured why not do some summery designs to kick off the official. What are we doing? Did you set your popsicle on the counter? Maybe that's what happens when you hold on. You have to get a new one, baby. You need to get a new one, okay? You need to get. Oh, hey, here, I got it here. You want to finish this one? All right, get a green one and I'll cut it for you, okay? What, baby? Get a green one and I will open it for you. I've got some scissors over here. Bless it. She needs help. Hold on. I know. It's sad when your popsicle melts on you. Okay, come on. Let's go cut it. Oh, those scissors aren't working. All right. Let me just use my
big one.
Everyday scissors, not my good paper scissors or my good fabric scissors. There you go. My good everyday scissors. Okay, put that in my little trash bag. Okay, let's get back to painting. There we go. I'm going to flip this around. Maybe go this way. Move my little highlighting brushes out the way. Trying to get it to where y'all can see it. There we go. Again, we're going to go up on the chiseled edge and really do a good job at base coating our window. If we do a good job with our base coat, we can have a lot more fun and enjoy our finished product with the shading, and we'll be more proud of what we painted because it started with a good foundation. I'm glad. Did you watch my video? I was nervous and it was weird to hear. Really? Okay. So yes, it is very weird to hear yourself on a video. So Terry painted a design and she added her own flair to it. She added some hand-painted fireworks and they were just beautiful. And she shared how she did it. And she recorded herself on video and I felt like you did wonderful. You did a great job. It is, I will admit, the very first time you ever hear yourself on camera, especially, you know, just practically, it feels like you're talking to yourself. So let's just use that for a lack of better words. Just talking to yourself, right? It's kind of scary. It's kind of awkward. Awkward is probably the best word to describe it. It gets easier though. I promise you. I could sit here, even if nobody was here hanging out with me, I could sit here and just talk to myself the whole daggone time. So I'm going to come back in here with a smaller brush. So I'm not skipping it, but I am skipping it. I'm going to flip this over. We're going to do this little section. I am going to go ahead and base coat the trunk or the truck bed. This is the tailgate, but we're not going to paint it quite yet, but I am going to base coat it. But this is Royal Navy. Yeah, Royal Navy. It's amazing coverage. This is one coat, and I think it's going to be a one coat wonder. Not many acrylic paints are literal one coat wonders. Can y'all hear Raylan eating the popsicle? The crunch of it all, y'all. So I'm just going to go ahead. That's Hayden.
Judy. I'll go with Hayden up, okay?
No, leave him alone, baby.
I think he waked up.
I think he is awake. I think he is just hibernating in his room like every teenager should. Or does, not should. So all I did was I took it up on the, you see about the 1/4 inch. This one's about a 1/2 inch big because it's a bigger, I had more paint on my brush. Ray, hold on 1 second. She is dying to just bug him, and I don't want her to bug him because he deserves some chill time. It's summer. He deserves to, especially at his age, you know, like the thing that boys at his age like to do, be by themselves. He's not hurting, not a thing in the world, and all she wants is his attention. Honestly, all she wants is for him to do something for her. And I am a firm believer that older brothers and sisters are not babysitters. It is one thing for them to help out for necessary reasons, but I've always said that he will not be her babysitter just because X, Y, and Z. Like, I ended up watching, along with my older brother. I'm one of the 2 oldest of a house full of kids, and watching my baby brothers and sisters, we pretty much watched each other. It wasn't that I was put in charge, but because you are the oldest, you automatically feel like you're a little bit more responsible for the others. I don't want him to feel that way. I want them to enjoy their siblings, but I don't want them to necessarily despise one another because one was held accountable for the other. And even though he did ask for a baby sister, so it kind of is partially his fault that she's here. Not really. That's a joke. So I'm going to avoid this mason jar as best as I can. And just because I know the blue of the mason jar is not going to cover this vivid, bright, saturated Royal Navy, which again, that's the color that we're using here. So we're using Royal Navy for the truck. We used vivid blue for the sky. So that's why they're a little different. I did not ghost them out. When in doubt, ghosted out. But this time I used 2 totally different paints. Okay. I just got these brushes that I just have sitting over here because I know I'm going to need them. I'm going to just get them out of my way. Because we are going to do some highlighting just like we did last week. So I'm just going to go here on the chisel and I'm going to work my way to that line and pull down away from the edge. So I want to keep a nice a nice clean, crisp line here. And then I'm going to take the very corner of my brush and fit it into there. So now I have all my wood covered. And no paint is where it shouldn't be. Now I still need to paint this little section back here on the other side of the mason jar. And then I need to go around town on it, right? I am going to bump down in brush size just because we're about to get in a sticky situation with that bigger brush. So I'm going to pull out, I think this is the 1/2 inch. I was using a 3/4 there. Never heard of those brushes. Which ones? Which ones are we talking about? Do you watch my... Oh, okay, I already said that. Firefly. No. Okay, so yes, I'm seeing the comments here. Some people are putting Firefly. Some people are putting Gnome. If you're wondering what they're doing, the Firefly is for the paintless. So you don't have to sit with pen and paper. I will send you the paint list for this design. Because it does have a good bit. It probably has a good 9-10 paint shades in here. Not including black and white. So if you would like the exact paint list that I'm using here, put the word Firefly. It'll also come with the direct links for the template in the shop, and it'll come to the direct links for the JPEG in the shop. And then it will also come with direct links for the wood blank over at Home Creations Milling and Signage. That way it is a one-stop shop for the links for you, boo. I like to make your life easier. So after I'm done, I will come back and answer all the questions in the comments. If you put the word Firefly, I'll link all the things pertaining to this design. If you put the word Gnome, for the month of June, I am gifting away this design for free before it hits my shop. Now you can order blanks from Home Creations. It is already up in their shop. I also have a different gnome head. I call them the gnome nose, but there's a different gnome style as well that we will also be using. Now that template is not available yet. That'll come later, but the face is available. So you can grab either one. I have a traditional gnome hat, and then I have the top hat gnome hat. I used an 18-inch blank in the top hat. I would probably, I haven't tested out the other gnome hat design as far as what size I would use on that one, so don't quote me on that. But as far as the top hat, I used an 18-inch. And in the email that you get, I explain all that. So you do not have to keep that information in your head. It's in the email that you'll get whenever you register for that design. Okay, so now that all that's painted, I am going to go back in. And this is just for saving my rear at the end of this thing. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to take my angle brush and I'm going to just base coat the blades of grass in this blue. Half of them are already base coated, half of them are not. This blue is not going to go down without a fight whenever we go to paint on top of it with the green. So let's just go ahead and work with it.
Over again.
What's over again? Start over? I'm not gonna start over. I'm halfway done.
Mommy,
Whoa. We're halfway there.
If you forgot they want to paint today, we're gonna do it.
I did tell him that we were gonna paint today.
No, you said we're gonna, because we're gonna paint. We had to do it. Okay, say that.
Oh, because we're painting it, this is what we're going to have to do.
Do it.
Do it. We're going to have to do this. I don't know why she's asking me to say that specifically like that.
Because you forgot to say it.
Oh, Lord, have mercy, Raylyn Marie.
Am I a good girl? I just said it.
You are a good girl. So all I'm doing is I'm up on the chisel, and I'm putting the very point of my angled brush in the point of the grass blade. And if you're using a template, do not feel like you have to do this quite yet. What I would do is once you get to this part in the template design, I would base coat it in this blue before you go in with the green. But don't feel like you have to freehand this grass. You can. I would definitely freehand the grass if I didn't have an etched blank. Just because I love painting grass. It's a fun little technique with the right brush. So all I'm doing is I'm base coating this grass in the green just so that when we go to add the green to the grass itself, I think I got all the blades of grass. I'm just double checking. Oh, no, I missed one right here. Just whenever I go to actually base coat it in the actual green, which is just a step or two away from now, I want all the green to be exactly the same shade of green. Once I started painting, if I didn't base coat it in the blue, what you would have seen was half of the green would have been a shade darker halfway through the blade than the rest of it because the base coat of it was a completely different base coat. The rake and splatter brush. Okay, so the splatter brushes, they have actual splatter brushes. Like they have like almost plasticky strips. They're not bristles. They're like plastic like strips. And you splatter like that, and they do a really good job. The only thing I don't like about them is they tend to splatter in a straight line. I'm not a big fan of them, and they make a huge mess. I just take a flat brush, a good wide flat brush, about a 3/4 to an inch wide flat brush, depending on what I'm splattering. If it was a smaller design, I'd probably take about a 1/2 inch, no bigger than a 3/4. And that is what I would use with some watered down white paint. And it gets just as beautiful. And I already have it. I don't have to buy a special brush for it. Now the rake brushes we're going to be using over in the paint studio here pretty soon. The beloved cowhead, the Highland cow, we're going to be doing that next week. So if you've been waiting for that design, that's coming next week. Okay, we should be good. We can now paint. Oh crud, I dropped it. Okay, no biggie. We can now paint our mason jar. Our mason jar is going to be spa blue. Okay. Now, I have decided that from here on out, a lot of the designs that I paint, I'm going to base coat most of it. The only reason I didn't base coat this one was because I wanted you to see how I got that ombre in the windows without making a big old mess. And it's because it's the very first step. I don't necessarily want to hold you hostage base coating everything. Because it's not the I mean, it's just base coating. We're going to bump up in brush size. I thought I could, let's see. Yeah. Get all that blue out of my brush, all that dark blue. Okay. So this is about a 1/2 inch. I busted out the 3/8 for the This is an angle brush. I typically use an angle brush no matter what, unless otherwise stated. I just use all different sizes. Good morning, Miriam. So I'm getting really up close and personal with my design here. I'm like right up on it. You're painting today. It looks so pretty. It looks very Marie Mosley, right? It looks very Marie Mosley. Marie likes to use dark backgrounds and bright poppy colors, and she does a lot of ombres. I mean, if I had to say that there was a signature of Marie's signature is an ombre. She does a lot of good ombre work. Okay, so there we go. We're just base coating right here. I'm going to go ahead and go in here. Got to make sure we do a good job on these little threads. Gosh, Raylyn, you and that popsicle over there, girly. I can hear you all the way over here, which is okay. I mean, she's doing okay. I really should be thankful she's being good. Normally when I'm live, she is testing the waters on how far she can get without Mama losing her cool. She's listening to you too.
It tastes like apple.
It tastes like apple?
Yeah.
All right, now what are you going to go do while Mama's painting?
Hot sauce and chips.
No, you're not going to get hot sauce and chips.
Then what am I going to do?
You're going to go play in your room for a little while until Mama's done.
Okay. That's not the rule.
That's exactly what we talked about.
That's like we talked
You were here
about.
about 5 minutes ago. I muted myself just so I could lay down the law a little bit.
Lay down the wall a bit.
And she agreed to it. Raylyn, please quit mocking me. Sweet baby.
Sweet baby.
Go play in your room, please.
Go play in your room, please.
What are you about to do?
I don't know what I'm about to do.
You don't know what you're about to do?
I don't know what I'm going to do.
What?
What?
Oh my goodness. Hold on. Okay, I think I fixed it. Thank you. Okay, so now we're just going in up on the chisel, get a nice crisp edge. And then we fill it in. Okay, there's our, look how that mason jar just pops. I'm looking at it in the camera here. Woo, that just pops. Y'all look how crazy that looks. Y'all know me, I do not get new paint trays like I do for Raylyn. Every time I paint, I just build up and build up on top of paint. It doesn't really interfere. A lot of people are like, that drives me crazy. And I really try not to show it too often, but it just amazes me how much paint can fit on. Now, this is actually 2 because that's my sealers. I do the same thing with sealers. As long as the thing stays debris free, I will. So look how much paint. So that paint probably goes about halfway up this tray. It just amazes me. Okay, so we're going to blow dry that. And then we're going to paint the grass. responded to your email about that this morning, babe. I feel like we've talked about it before. I may be wrong. There is a private Facebook group, and you are in it. I double checked it this morning. You are in it. And the private Facebook group holds all the information. And then you also get emails. And I have double checked. Your emails have been sent to you every month. You get an email that has all the files in it, so you never lose your files because the files do exit. Oh, can we turn that down? The files do exit the group eventually, so I never want the members to lose their files. If you're wondering what we're talking about Paint Studio. We pretty much do this in the Paint Studio, but in more depth, and we go over all different types of tips and tricks in there. I really try to make it educational based with a whole lot of fun. All right, our next step is our grass green. It's actually called leaf green. She's talking to the TV in there. I thought it was the TV yelling at, like still being extremely loud, and it's her. That's her. All right, so we got leaf green, which when I want a nice, bright, vibrant green, especially with a dark background like this, leaf green is always the one I go for. So I'm going to put the chisel up on my brush. I'm actually going to bump down in brush size. I'm going to grab my 3/8, which is a little small for the blade of grass, but because we are fussy painting this in right here at the tailgate, which I'm not too terribly worried about it because we can always add that blue back up on top of it. That blue will cover the green, but the green was going to have a hard time hiding the blue. So it will cover the blue, but it will not hide the blue, if that makes sense. So all I'm doing is I'm up on the chisel. Like I was saying earlier, every time I say that, I think of that Christmas song, "Fun the House Stop, Reindeer Paws." And it is always stuck in my head. Ah, my children. I love them. They're my pride and joy. But the summer, like, it's something about the summer. And I know we have talked about this pretty much every live since the summer started. The summer, like, a button switches on of I'm an angel during the school year. And I'm an angel my children, I have really good kids. I'm not going to lie. But there's something that says, let me see where my boundaries are with mom. Every summer. It's every summer. It's every summer. And we play this good tug of war every summer. Let me make sure I'm painting the right thing. Every summer of mom will win. Mom wins every time. Every time mom is going to win. So why do we play this game? Let's just have an amazing summer where we don't play this game. But no, I think it's just a natural kid thing. I think we all did it to our parents. Honestly, I think every parent went through this, even with the good kids. My kids know the rules. And although Raylan's still learning how to adhere to the rules, she's still a good kid. She's still really good. She probably has to be reminded of the rules more so than my son. He very rarely, like right then, that was the first time I've had to correct him in a good minute. All right, so I'm gonna leave all this right here alone, okay? Only because I don't want to fussy paint that in with a brush that's way too big for the job. So I'm gonna do the majority of the work that I can with the bigger brush, just so that we are not. There's honey buns in the fridge, babe, that I made. They're in the glass container. So there was a TikTok recipe that's going viral everywhere. And I mean, although I shouldn't eat them, I figured they are a great treat, especially for the summer. A good late breakfast treat. They are delicious. I did take a bite. They are delicious. Kind of wish this hack was around whenever we were growing up. They taste almost, not quite homemade, but as close to homemade as you can get from a can. So it's a can of biscuits, or not biscuits, it's a can of Pillsbury cinnamon rolls. A lot of people use the Cinnabon. We use just the regular, just because it was cheaper, because they came in a 2-pack for the same price of one Cinnabon pack. All I'm doing is base coating these leaves, y'all. I'm not doing anything fancy. The only thing fancy that I'm doing is making sure I stay up on the chisel. I don't load my brush with paint. You don't want too much paint on the brush, because your paint will get messy. Okay, so the cinnamon, so you put your buns in the pan, right? Just like you would normally. Put your buns in the pan, and then you take a little bit. The amount that they used in their videos was they pretty much coated the entire bottom of the pan with buns in. So you put a good bit of heavy whipping cream in the entire pan, and just make sure that you see no more pan. And I was like, that seems like a lot. So I put about half as much. So they had a good pour of heavy whipped cream. There was no measuring. Don't think that there's not a measurement. It's just kind of, you measure with your heart kind of thing. And I did about half of what I saw. So on average, there was about, you get a good feel for what they did by visually watching it. And then I did half of what I saw, just because it seemed like a lot. a lot. And so mine came out just fine. I feel like they would have came out soupy had I used as much as they did. I don't know what kind of TV magic they did, because theirs always came out looking delicious, just like mine did. So I don't think it really matters how much you use. But I used probably about 1/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream poured over the tops and in the crevices. If I had to guesstimate, because I measured with my heart for real, of heavy whipped cream. Then the next step is you take a little bit of butter and melt it and mix it with some brown sugar and cinnamon. So you're pretty much making the glaze that's inside the cinnamon buns. You're putting it on top of it too. So you add those two mixtures, the heavy whipping cream, and then you come back in with the butter, brown sugar, and cinnamon. I was having a hard time grasping that word. And the cinnamon. And you just pop it in the oven covered like you would the regular, and then cook it according to the directions on the can. I think I cooked mine. I think it says 13 to 17 minutes, and I did two packs. So I think that affected the cook time. So I cooked it, I think, grand total 22 minutes covered with foil. I did the first 17. So the entire first, according to the whatchamacallit, the instructions. I did all that. Covered, and then for the last 5 minutes, I uncovered it just so some of that liquid could evaporate. For being able to continue to paint with little ones. I'm telling you, Melody, it's not easy. It's not easy. And I'm not a mom that really raises my voice. I get stern. And I honestly get a little bit embarrassed about how stern I get. My mom wasn't a yelling mom, but her voice carried naturally, just like mine does. I'm just loud. She was just loud. So whenever she did raise her voice, it was like yelling, but honestly, it was just the octave higher than her loudness to begin with, right? So I get embarrassed about how stern. That's why I mute it, because I'm really the tone that I take with them is whenever Raylan was getting in trouble right there, I was if you don't go to your room and do it like that, I really do get embarrassed. And I don't necessarily want that to be public. Even though there's nothing wrong with it. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with how I talk to my kids. And I feel like it's a lot better than yelling. I still don't necessarily. So I do apologize for muting, but that's why I mute. Because if I have to get to a stern mama, I don't necessarily want to dampen the vibe we got going. Hey, Marla, if you have trouble finding it, you just reach out to me. We will figure it out, okay? When you say chisel, I hear Snoop Dogg say shizzle. Chisel for shizzle. I grew up in that era, so I totally know what you're talking about, Debbie. We've been wanting to try it. They say it tastes like cinnamon. They're good. Marie, just do it. Like, it's good. Just don't put as much heavy whipping cream as they're putting in it. I'm telling you, it looks like soup. So what I did after they came out of the oven, I set, just like you do with meat or a roast or anything, you don't cut into it first thing as soon as it comes out. You let it set off, and then we let them cool. We let them come to not quite room temperature because you still want to eat them hot, right? So we pulled them out, and we let them cool. I just dropped my ruler. We let them cool and soak up. Does that make sense? So they tasted I've never had a Cinnabon, but they tasted like, if you know Buc-ee's, they tasted like Buc-ee's cinnamon rolls. They got twice as big as they normally do. Like Buc-ee's is like the size of a dinner plate. A former primary school secretary. Oh, Debbie, okay, here, this is going to be good. As a former primary school secretary, don't get embarrassed. Schools appreciate that you teach them to respect you and listen. She starts kindergarten next year. All right, so I'm going to take black. We're going to go ahead and just base coat the tires. And I'm going to ghost it out with some white. So we're going to you know what? The color that I want is right here. We're going to take Gray Storm and add a drop of black. How about that? Gray Storm, and we're going to add a drop of black. So normally I would have had to take white and take black and white and mix it up. But that takes some guesstimating. So I'm going to take Gray Storm and a little bit of black, and I'm going to mix it up. All I'm doing is I'm making a charcoal gray, an almost black gray, because I don't want straight from the bottle black on my tires. What I want is something that I can play with some shading later, because we are going to want to add some definition to it. So we're going to take a wider brush. This is our 1/2 inch. We're going to take our Storm Gray with a drop of black, about 2 or 3 drops of black, actually. You do not need to paint the rails. If you have rails, you do not need to paint the rails. If you do not have rails and you just have tires at the bottom of yours, then all you do is you just paint the tire. But I have rails because next week we're going to come in and we're going to, we may do it Thursday. This may be our Thursday. So I haven't decided if it's going to be Thursday. Yeah, let's do this Thursday. So Thursday, we're going to come in and put rails on it. I had originally said next week, but I don't want you to have to wait all week, because next Monday, I think we're going to be painting our Highland Cow. Okay, so what we did there, we're just going to put here. This is a Storm Gray with a couple drops of black in it. So it makes a really dark gray, not quite black. It's still going to look like dark tires. But when we go to shade or add a tire tread to it, they're going to look really good. They're going to look really good. The rest of it won't be all nice and bright and poppy with all that shading and prettiness to it with flat black tires. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is to put all this work into adding definition to a project, and then especially a truck. I see it on trucks all the time. And then go to the, something just doesn't quite look right, and it's the tires. You just don't notice it, but it's the tires. They look flat and one-dimensional when everything else has all this character and texture to it. There we go. There's our tires. Nothing special about them yet. We will get there. Sunglasses cow or the Highland with the flowers? It's going to be the Highland with the flowers. But for the sunglasses cow, you would do the exact same thing that you did here. You would do his sunglasses the very first, do them just like this. And then proceed on with however you want to paint the rest of it. Do it in layers and build it up. So now we're going to add some definition to all of our little places. We're going to add some highlighting to our mason jar, some low lights to our mason jar. We're going to add some dimension to our grass. We're going to add some highlights later. We're going to add some low lights. We're going to start with the low lights, right? Let's go ahead and get our bumper on here, base coated. This is Sky Gray, Deco Art Sky Gray. I'm going to use my 3/4 inch angle brush just because it's straight lines. It's pretty much straight lines, but because there is a curve here where it meets here, I want my angle brush because an angle brush gets nice in those curves without being a nuisance like that was. Okay, so we're just going to get nice and tight on that where the two paint colors meet. Okay, I need more Sky Gray. Just hopped on to watch you. Oh, hey, Leanne. How are you doing? Let's see, the cow will be cool to see. Debbie, okay, so the only reason we're not painting it today, because I was going to paint it today. I originally had this one planned for today, but I have gotten so many requests for that Highland cow. That hair technique, I don't do too often. So I need a good sit down session and practice it one good time before. And I just didn't get that this weekend. I thought I was going to get that this weekend. That's why I never announced that it was going to happen. I just kept telling people I'm going to get to it, but I don't know when. And it's because I wanted to make sure I sat down and practiced it. I have one good friend over in my paint studio. Her name is Erin. She has been dying for this technique. So the same technique for the cow is probably going to be the same technique for gnome beards, for long-haired animals. You can even shorten the brush stroke that I'm going to teach you and do it for short-haired animals like Erin needs right now. She does. So Erin uses, Erin has an entire business based off of corgis. All things corgi, all home decor corgi, and corgis are the cutest little daggum things, and she does such an amazing job on them. But there's different types of corgis with different types of hair textures and hair mixtures, like a brindle or a salt and pepper, or there's other ones. I think she called it a merle. I think is how you pronounce it. They're not all just one solid color, right? So I have been working on some paint techniques and some paintbrush suggestions for her, but I think that Highland cow is gonna be a good one for her to follow as well. So it's been asked for a million times since releasing that design. I just think I need to practice it one good time, since it's been a while since I've done it, before I show how to do it. It's one of those techniques I don't necessarily want to practice in front of somebody. I want to go ahead and have it like the muscle memory. I need it. It's like riding a bike. I haven't forgotten how to do it. It's just my feet may need a couple of extra minutes to figure out the pedal brake situation. just to get a feel for it again. Okay, I'm going to do one more good swipe of sky gray. Okay. There was one little spot. There it is. Oh, I have purple on my brush, but that's okay. We can erase it. We can work it in there. It's no biggie. No biggie. Okay. Then we're going to come over here. And we're just going to not too worried about where the tailgate is because we're going to do another good coat of that to cover all this grass and to cover where we ever painted with the gray. So don't worry about that. We just want to go ahead and put that gray down so we can go ahead and start drying. There we go. My tub is full of blanks. I can't paint fast enough. There are just so many things that you want to paint that you go ahead and cut it. We're like, let me cut it. All right, we're gonna blow dry this completely because we're about to add some shading, and then we're gonna come back and do some highlighting, and we should be good to go. I'm gonna stencil the word hello on here as well. I cut out. Where did she put it? Oh goodness gracious! Oh, I moved it out of her reach. I cut out the word hello on my little Cricut. So I have a Cricut Maker and I have a Cricut Joy. And I use my little Cricut Joy just to do my little quick little stencil out of manila folder material. So whenever I make little stencils, I have been testing out different stencil material that's not stencil material. Like you can buy stencil material on Amazon and from other companies. They get expensive though. If you're just doing this as a hobby and you just want a quick little stencil to do your project because you're not very confident in hand lettering like I am, I always cut out a little stencils. I use my laser sometimes, but most of the time I'll bust out my Cricut and I'll make a stencil out of my Cricut using Procreate and my Cricut. You don't need fancy things. You just need something to get the job done, right? All right, so let's grab, we've got our leaf green. I'm gonna grab Hauser dark. Okay. And we're going to do some, and I'm going to get a clean tray because we're about to start blending. We need our floating medium or blending gel. Floating medium I like to use for actual floating. We need some floating medium. Let's get that on the palette. We need a good bit because there's a good bit of floating in here. We need our Hauser dark. I'm going to use my 1/2 inch. I'm going to load my brush up. So I'm just putting all over here is all my floating medium. I'm going to come over here to this one spot. I'm going to make sure I don't have any color in my brush. And it's crystal clear. Okay. So that means my brush is clean and good to go. I'm going to pick up some of this Hauser dark. And I'm going to start making me a little spot. Okay. Now, as long as for the brush, the width of the brush is about a 1/2 inch. I did about a 1/2 bristle all the way to about the halfway mark. I dipped it in the Hauser dark. As long as this side, see how it's crystal clear over here? As long as it stays crystal clear, we're good to go. We can work as far as we want to, right? So I'm just going to come over here and put my brush. And I'm going to start adding some shading. This is when you want just subtle shading to really make your design pop. Okay. You just do that for every leaf. You know what I forgot? I forgot to take a smaller brush with my leaf green and fill in these little spots. So let me do that real quick. And we'll come back to this one leaf blade because I don't want to blow dry that right now. We'll just work on the other leaf blades. Okay, remember that was just a really tight spot I didn't necessarily want to go in with my bigger brush, and I totally forgot to do that. So let's just let that air dry. When you feel like your brush is drying out, add some floating medium to the clear side. If you feel like you don't have enough start in the point, I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to show you how. So I technically went over this blue with my brush, but because it's crystal clear with the floating medium side, no big deal. I'm going to make sure I'm going on the bottom half of each blade. There's like an underneath and a top, okay? You want to make sure that you're concentrating. Hold on one second. You want her show is the show that she likes has episodes saved on PBS. She likes Pinkalicious, and her show eventually runs out of episodes and it goes into like a podcast style. Hold on one second. And when it goes to it went to podcast. Can you change it from podcast back to the episode? Thank you. Sweet boy. Mama's sweet boy. He just comes out, looks at me. She goes, what? What does Princess need now? This is about the only time I ever ask him to really help is whenever I am completely tired. And I really do feel bad about it. Not really. But I don't want to, I told myself when I had her, I was like, I don't want to make a habit out of having him be her keeper. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I really do pause and say, is this something I can do? Or am I asking him just to make my life convenient? I never want to ask him something to make my life convenient. So I have set myself up some boundaries when it comes to asking him to help with her. And that's one of my boundaries. I don't want to ever ask a child to take care of a child. Just out of convenience. It's one of those things that there's a joke in the mom community. Is isn't that what we had kids for? You know, and it's a joke, but sometimes you gotta check yourself. It's like, oh, did I have my kid to get my kid's juice for me just because I don't want to get up off the couch, or am I doing something to where I can't go get the juice? So it's just one of those situations. Let's see. We are going to shade this. Okay, so this little section is where it gets a little hairy because we've got multiple blades of grass crossing at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on one, come over here and work on these, and then these should be dried to where I can go on the ones that are crossing it, okay? So I'm just going to work on that one in the very back. I'm going to add my green. Now this is Hauser Dark that I'm shading with. Let's see. I'm going to have to flip this over because now my grass blades are going in opposite directions. It's really hard to get this whole thing in the thing because of these rails. It's really hard to get them in view to where you can see what I'm doing, the madness behind it all. And I start at the tip of the grass blade and I work myself down. Okay. And that right there gives me a nice clean point. And because we're using the very toe of our brush to add this in, I'm using very light pressure. So it's not really going on as a harsh line. It's just going on as a little bit of a shadow. And I'm keeping it on the bottom half of the blade because that's where the shadow would start, right? And we want to make sure that the back end of our brush, the side that has the floating medium on it, stays crystal clear. Because if we don't, we'll start picking up dirty water or wet paint, and that will definitely mess up the look of our design because we'll get a little halo effect, and that really takes away from all the work that you did. Yeah, that's every blade of grass except for this one. Let's go back in and finish this one up, the one that we skipped because we needed to let that paint dry. And we're going to go along this because our blade of grass goes this way. So the light is going to hit the curved part, the very tip top part. And we're going to stop. Nobody's talking to you. Watch just decided that it wants to be part of the conversation. All right. Add some more green, some more floating medium. Make sure my brush is staying crystal clear on the floating medium side, especially since we're going over freshly laid down paint. We don't want to smear or smooth any of that out. So I'm going feather-like touches. I'm smoothing it out. Okay, I'm going to add just a little bit more. I want this is a pretty wide blade. Now, if this is not dark enough for you, you need more definition than this on your blades of grass, then I want you to let it completely dry. Okay? Let it completely dry, which most of it is. Most of it is. And I want you to go back in and load your brush with the floating medium again. Which my water is dirty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to steal Raylan's water. It should be cleaner. Yeah, it's at least not blue. Yeah, it's not blue. There we go. And I'm going to go back in with the floating medium and the same color. Okay, same color. And I won't have to do as much work because we've got a good foundation of the green already. We're going to just add a second layer. So all it's going to do is it's going to deepen it up. Oh, we totally skipped this blade of grass. Let's add that in. And all this does is it creates separation from one blade of grass to another. Okay. We're going to go here. Okay. And just every time we go to pick up green, I'm double checking this side of my brush. Every time I swipe it, I'm trying to keep my brush in the exact same position as it was the last time, even if I pick up new paint. Keeping the green on this side, the clear on this side. Even though this is a little wet, we're going to go ahead and add a second layer to this. Sorry if you hear the scratching, it's my bracelet. We have some individuals all throughout summer. There are all different camps going on, camps, mission trips. I believe this is camp and mission trip. I don't know if this is a person that went on the mission trip to Mexico or if this is an individual. They didn't tell us. They were all color coordinated. They didn't tell us the colors for what. But there is a bunch of our church members that are off, away from home. And anytime it's like that, they have bracelets with everybody's name on it. And each member that's staying home grabs a bracelet. And we spend the entire time that they're gone from home every day. We're supposed to wear it. So they give them, it's almost like that fair. Like if you were to go to the fair, they put those little bracelets on you that are water resistant and they hold up to the elements pretty well. We wear them, and it reminds us to pray for that particular individual. And so it just so happened last week the high schoolers were at camp, and I always send my husband up to. I was like, just grab me one. And so my husband goes up. Graham goes up to the front, and he grabs one. It just so happens to be one of our best friends who went as a counselor, as one of the guys, the chaperones for the older boys And I was like, well, ain't that, and we just so happened to sit next to them in service as well. It's like, well, ain't that just a winky dink? So I think I ended up getting one of it's the children's department that is like the 3rd through 5th graders that are off at camp this week, along with a Mexico trip and I want to say another mission trip. Okay, there was one blade of grass that I skipped because it intersected. It's this one. There we go. Now let's blow dry that. I'm just going to go ahead and feed that down there and then add a little bit more down here because this blade of grass covers. There we go. So we're going to clean our brush. Let's blow dry that. Let's add some shading to our mason jar. We're not going to do any highlight. Highlighting's last. We do highlighting with one brush, one color. It's going to be beautiful. Hey, Susan. Hey, Sarah. That was a 1/2 inch angle. When I do any kind of shading, it depends on what project I'm using. It's usually either a 1/2 inch or a 3/8. And I'm lying, that was a 3/8. These are smaller elements. So that's a 3/8 angle. And I'm using floating medium from Folk Art, and all my paints are Deco Art. And that was leaf green with Hauser dark on top of it. We'll come back and put some highlights on there a little later, but we're going to work on our mason jar now. And our mason jar is going to be, I am a firm believer in mixing your paints to make them match. And we're going to take some spa blue. I'm going to take some spa blue. I'm going to take a drop of spa blue and probably a drop of Royal Navy. I'm going to try and get the teeniest, tiniest little pin drop. Y'all are going to see some mixing magic here. So that, I mean, literally a drop of spa blue and half the amount of Royal Navy, which is the color of the truck. Okay. And this may be a little too dark. So I think what I'm going to do, we're going to add, I'm going to add a couple more drops of spa blue. I had a feeling that Royal Navy was going to be potent. 1, 2. Sarah, I'm so glad you came to hang out with us. I like new friends. We paint every Monday and Thursday morning at 10 a.m. And I invite you to come hang out with us. There's a lot of things going on right now, so let me tell you about them since you're new here. Right now, we are painting a door hanger design, but you can't see it right now. There's wreath rails at the bottom of it. All my blanks are housed over at a company called Home Creations Milling and Signage, and they give the best quality blanks. I'm painting one of their blanks now. Even though I have a laser here at the house, I still order blanks from them from time to time, just because, like the wreath rails. I mean, they offer the wreath rails. How cool is that? And if you've never used wreath rails, Thursday we're going to go over how to use them. So you're going to want to come hang out with us at 10 a.m. Thursday to see this whole project come to life. So all I'm taking is I have floating medium on the back end of my brush, just like I do in any other shading situation. And I'm just shading underneath very lightly underneath all the threads of the mason jar. Okay, just shading underneath all the threads. Okay, there we go. That's just going to make all those curved edges pop. I'm using a very light touch. I'm using very little paint. It just makes it really come to life. And because the original colors in the design, all the base coat colors are the colors that I use to mix the shading color, it's not going to clash. I use the color of the mason jar and I use the color of the truck. And I kind of made a little mixture so that they would not clash. It's hard sometimes, especially with blues. Blues and reds are really hard to match shading colors with. So as long as you marry two different colors with at least one of the parent colors being from your original design, you should be good to go. Hey everyone, I'll have to catch the replay later. Busy day. Well, hello Cindy. Have fun on your busy day. I hope it's super productive. I'm going to clean my brush because I got a little, I kind of contaminated the floating medium side. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start back over. So when you contaminate your brush, which means you accidentally get paint where it's not supposed to be, you dip it in your floating medium and go straight back into where you were working. You just pick up the color and then you dip the toe of your brush back in the original color and you reprime your brush. Okay? If you get too much paint, you just kind of, if you get too much paint, so say we're here, right? And I have way too much paint on my brush. Instead of just kind of wiping it off, I go a little further out I just go this way. And it kind of pulls that paint off my brush without contaminating the clean floating medium side. Okay, and then I'm going to shade the bottom of the very top of that jar. I do want it to be a little darker than everything else in the jar. I'm going to add more paint than normal. There we go. Now, there's still a little bit in these threads that need to be done. I need to come back and do the sides of those, but I want everything up there to dry without having to blow dry. If I have to blow dry later, I will. Let's go ahead and work on these sides. Okay. Because everything is dry. All the grass is dry. If I go over the grass with this, all I do is I take a little bit of a baby wipe, or I can take a Q-tip and buff it off, right? I can just kind of wipe it off because the mason jar itself is dry. The grass is dry. A lot of times I can just take my pinky and clean it off. I'm going to go underneath every blade of grass with just the lightest little bit of this blue, okay? Not crazy. I don't want it to be distracting. Just lightest little bit of blue. If your brush dries out, remember, pick up some floating medium. If your paint is running out, pick up some paint. It's that simple. I'm using very light strokes. I'm not worried about getting any paint in the tailgate of this truck. We can always go back up since the tailgate is straight from the bottle. There's no mixing in that tailgate. It will be easy to clean up those edges. So this grass is laying on top of this mason jar. So I want to make sure that there's a good little shadow that it's creating on the mason jar. There we go. And that should be all of the shading that we need to do, except for those threads. So I'm going to come back. I think everything is everything's pretty much dry because we're putting super light coats of paint. It's not taking long to dry at all. I'm going to go along the edge. All the floating medium does is it keeps the paint from drying out and spreading too far. You just want a little bit of a shadow floating on there to create definition. And I'll give you a more close-up look when we're done to show you really what's happening here. And my goal when I paint is to try to not lean on paint pens as much as I have in the past. To try to get the job done without it. Now, there are times where paint pens are necessary because they add a pinstripe of what is that word called? I need some white paint while we're talking about it. I want to go ahead and base coat this white where the license plate goes. let everything dry before I go back in with my angle brush and finish floating all that in there. So I'm just going to go in with just a 3/4 inch angle brush. Just a good size. Everything's straight lines, solid corners. This is just titanium white, also known as snow white. There's different shades of white. When your colors are this bright and poppy, you want to use titanium white. If you have a nice vintage look to your design, you want to use warm white. That's the difference. Titanium white is paper white. It is white. Warm white is just what it leads on to believe. It's got a warm tone to it. It's just slightly off white, but it gives a nice warm, softer look. It's not as harsh as titanium white. Titanium white compared to warm white can be kind of harsh. Put them side by side, you'll see the difference. All right, so that's going to need a second coat. That's why I wanted to go ahead and lay down a base coat. It's kind of a messy one. Could have done better. I could have done better on that, but we're not going to worry about it. Okay, I want to do that before we paint. Let's add some shading to our window and to our truck itself. We're going to add a little bit of shade here. And all we're going to do is we are going to take our clean brush, our shading palette, because remember I have a paint palette that houses all the paint that I ever use on any design. Like I just have a messy palette that I just pour paint on and use it like that. But when I need paint colors to stay separate, I use a shading palette. It's the only time that I break out a brand new palette every time. I hate wasting palettes. And these are just little meat trays from the Dollar Tree. That's all this is. So I'm going to take that Royal Navy. We're going to make a nice little wash out of it for our windows. I got way too much paint. So remember what I said? I started way over here with my paint and I want a lighter wash. So I started scooting my brush this way towards the floating medium side, and that thinned out that paint. So I'm just going to go around this window. Okay. Just going to go around this window. And all this is going to do is going to soften up the line. It's not really adding a shade because it's the exact same shade as the truck itself. It's just softening up that line because we have so many colors transitioning. We have so many colors transitioning here. And I just put my elbow in that wet white. Let's blow dry that before that becomes a mess. Oh my goodness, I almost missed you. I'll have to watch the replay. Okay, Tammy. It's a good one this week. I've had a lot of requests for this one on how do you get that ombre so neat in the windows. And so we went over that. And then we're just using the rest of the design as a good shading tutorial. And then now I won't really have to do a whole lot up here because remember, this is very close to the color that we used on the truck, which is just a shade darker than that sky blue that we used up there. So this is Royal Navy. With our floating medium. And we're just floating this on. I'm going to move my brush caddy. That'll help. That'll give me a little bit more room to work with. I'm just light strokes. When I run out of paint, I pick up paint. When I feel like my brush is getting dry, I make sure I add a little bit of floating medium to the clear side of my brush. If I feel like I'm not getting a good deep color, I do not switch colors. I just wait for this layer to dry, which takes just seconds because we're putting the lightest layer of paint that we could possibly put on. I just wait seconds for it to dry, and then, or I could blow dry it. And then I go back in with the exact same color and do a second layer, and that'll deepen it up. I don't necessarily want to do that with what I'm doing right now. This little transition between the window and the ombre sky, our little sunset. We just want just the slightest little transition. We don't want anything crazy and heavy, and we just want it to be a nice little fuzzy transition. That's all we're achieving here. Especially here in this lighter area down here. We don't want there to be a blue, right? We just want the lightest little hint of blue. Okay, and don't forget your windows over here. See, this is going to be a lot crazier of a transition because I got way too much blue. There we go. Pick up our blue, pick up our floating medium. Oh, I hear the word podcast. She's been sent to a podcast. May have to call in Bubba for reinforcements. There we go. And there is our shading on that. You're the bestest Big Bubba ever. Okay, so now we're going to shade the truck. Now, the truck has a lot of dark already to it. There's not a whole lot we can do to it other than black, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our Royal Navy. Okay, take our Royal Navy. Okay, so about 3 drops of Royal Navy because we want about and the tiniest little bit of black, just the tiniest. I really need to put. Ooh, that's a lot. That was a whole drop, just one whole drop. Yep, nope. We're just gonna add that to the blue. This is not my favorite technique to deepen a color, but with blue, especially a navy blue, it's really hard to get a darker navy blue. Navy blue is dark, okay? With that, and I don't necessarily want to use straight black. Okay, so I'm loading my brush with the floating medium. Okay, so you'll be able to see a little different. I don't know if the camera picks it up. That is Royal Navy. That's the truck color. That right there is the Royal Navy with black. And then I just added a little bit more black. And then I've got straight Royal Navy there. Okay. So let's go ahead and get to working on that. We just want to get a nice transition. We just want it to get like a nice little, can you see that? That compared to that. That's all we're doing, okay? And like I said, you want to keep the back end of your brush super clean, especially with this darker color, okay? You want to try and not let that get contaminated, especially with this darker color, because it will be noticeable. The darker the color, the more noticeable your halo. And what I mean by halo is if the clean side of your brush that has the floating medium, even though it has something on it, it's just clear, right? It's crystal clear. You want it to stay as crystal clear as possible, because when it dries, you'll be able to see the ghost, the halo of where your brush was, because your brush was not clean. There we go. So what I do is I separate my floating medium all the way over here from all of my paint puddles. So my floating medium's over here. I dip the back end of my brush when I need floating medium. I dip the toe of my brush when I need pigment. And as long as the floating medium sides, which comes all the way over here. So that's how wide my brush strokes are. This right here is crystal clear. As long as it stays crystal clear, we're good to go. We can keep on keeping on with our bad selves. And I'm just picking up paint when I feel like I need to pick up paint. I don't need this to be a drastic transition. So like I said, it's already a dark color to begin with. It's not work. We can only go so much darker before we go straight black, and we don't want to go straight black. Straight black would be too much of a transition. And if it's a situation where you feel like it's not as deep as you would like it to be, wait for it to dry, which this right here is already dry, and we just painted it, right? You can go back over with a second layer. Deepen it up. Yeah. Now where this is really going to make a difference is when you where the tailgate meets the oh, look at my peppermint. I'm gonna go ahead and eat it. It's been staring at me this whole time. I don't necessarily need it, but it's been staring at me. Okay, so now we've got the top half of our truck shaded. Now say you get somewhere where you feel like you did too much and it's already dry, no worries. Just dip your brush in floating medium, completely just floating medium, and go over that section and just kind of go back and forth, and it'll kind of break up that top layer. You don't want to do too much because you can take up that base coat color. Just go back and forth, and it'll kind of disperse that paint a little bit more and kind of soften it up. Okay. So here we go. We're going to pick up a little bit more of this mixture that we've created of the blue and the black. We're just going to put it on the very tip top. We're just outlining all the different edges of our truck. The part that I really wanted to focus on were these curves right here. Underneath the blades of grass. So let me show y'all that. So I've got this little blade of grass right here. I'm just going to put a little bit there. Probably a little bit right here. And as long as the clear side of my brush stays clear, it doesn't matter if I go over that blade of grass, right? Shouldn't matter if I go over that blade of grass. Because it won't leave a halo. Okay, we're going to go over this blade of grass. But not in the mirror. Just where there's blue. I'm not going to go over that one because we've already shaded that one. Not going to go over any of these because they're in the window. They're not going to have a shadow. Probably go over this little section right here. I am going to have to clean my brush because I contaminated it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my floating medium. Make sure I don't have any hidden blue in my brush. Pick up some on the toe. Just load it and make sure the back end of my brush stays crystal clear. And go here and here. Probably get a little bit underneath that. Yep, that should be good. Now, That's all the shading as far as all this up here goes. We're going to put in our tailgate and we'll shade that. And that's real simple. All we're going to do is we're going to clean up our tailgate by taking an angle brush and our Royal Navy, which is our truck color. Not going to need a whole lot of it because all we're doing is we're just doing some touch up. Since our truck is 100% straight from the bottle, not mixed, it's all one color. Get that out of the way for a second. We're just going to take our brush up on the chisel and we're going to start painting over everything that's not supposed to be there. Okay? Knock the majority of my paint off my brush and then come back in on the chisel. Paint over all that green. Paint over any splattered white. Okay, we're going to clean up our bumper. See how easy that go. We're just getting nice and tight on that edge. There we go. Just erasing anything that doesn't need to be there. Okay, we're going to blow dry that, and then we are going to give a little bit of shade. So Sandy, the bottom part is called a wreath rail, and we're gonna make that all nice and fancy on Thursday. So you're gonna want to come back on Thursday to see what we use this for. We're gonna make a bunch of fancy bows. We're gonna add. I haven't decided if we're gonna add deco mesh or not. If we're gonna add fabric, I haven't decided how we're gonna zhuzh this up. But what this does is you can get this as just the truck, just like any other time you would order a blank, or you would cut your own blank, right? Home Creations does this really cool thing for pretty much, I want to say, all the designs possible, right? So they add what's called a wreath rail. It's an option on all, especially all my designs for sure. That's housed over at their website. But I want to say all their designs, you can add what's called a wreath rail. And there's curved wreath rails, and then there's straight wreath rails. This is a straight one. It just depends on what the design is, which one it gets. They decide that part. You don't have to go into all that detail. But what you do is you pretty much marry a door hanger and a wreath together, and the most beautiful, fancy door decor baby is born. It's kind of a perfect marriage between a door hanger and a wreath. And we're going to do the wreath rail part on Thursday. Okay, so our second coat of white, real quick. I'm just going to put it straight on the thing because my white is already starting to dry out. We don't need a bunch. That is definitely a no-no. Do not do what I just did. You do not want to put paint straight to wood. A lot of people do it in a pinch, but it's not the best practice to get in the habit of doing. You end up using a lot of paint. It ends up making a huge mess. Because I did a really good first coat, we're just adding a quick little sloppy second coat. There we go. And that'll be good. We're going to add some shading to the tailgate of our truck. Here it is. Okay. Where'd my little brush go? Did I put it in Raylan's? I did. Put it in Raylan's. I think this is, yeah, this is mine. Her brushes and my Magenta brushes look really close. Hers don't have a brand name on them. And that's the only way I'm able to tell the difference is the color of the metal. The fact that hers are wooden and mine are plastic, which is a huge plus with paint brushes nowadays. Wooden brushes split. I'm not a big fan of wooden brushes. So I'm going all the way on the outside of the truck bed line. I'm doing it on the outside of the truck bed, okay? Not going on the inside. I'm on the outside. And I'm just going to give it a nice little shadow of where the truck and the tailgate separate. That's all we're doing. Making sure that my floating medium side stays nice and clean. I am going to go do this side as well. And then I'll come back and do the parts where they kind of intersect a little bit. There's not a huge intersection, but it's enough that you can kind of get your paint mixed up. And you don't want to do that. If you don't have to re-prep your brush because you cross-contaminated your brush, that just slows you down. Nobody wants to be slowed down. They want to see, I'm an instant gratification kind of girl. I'm ready to see this thing in all its glory. I want to get it sealed. You want to hang out to the end because I'm going to show you a really fun way to make fireflies. All right, so this side is already dry. This side is already dry, so let's go back to this side. And let's outline this side. Okay, so I'm just picking up my paint. We're going to stencil. We still have a stencil to do. We still have our fireflies and our highlights. And I have a special brush. A special brush that we're going to use. Okay. Flip this back over so you can see it. This side's dry enough. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm keeping the paint on the outside, on the very edge. This is keeping me from having to do a bunch of paint pen. Now, paint pen will be faster. If you want to speed up the process, by all means, go with paint pen. It's going to speed it up because all you have to do, instead of doing all this floating, you would take your paint pen and outline it, right? But to take your painting skills to the next level, this is definitely your next step. Dropping the paint pen and leaning on your paint ability. Leaning on your skill. And it's a skill that needs to be practiced. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty fun. And all of a sudden, you're shading all the things. There we go. Now, you see right here, all the way out here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can get closer. See that glossiness? That will dry down completely matte. Look on this side. It's already dried down. And you don't see it. Like, it's still slightly wet. So the drier it gets, the less you can see it. And when it's completely dry, because right now it's just dry to the touch. But when it's completely dry, like up here, so you can't see where that floating medium really was. Like, you have to get it just at the right angle. But once you seal it, it's completely gone. So there's one side that didn't get as dark as the other. It's dry, so I'm going to go right back over it with a second coat. This side's a lot darker than this side. So all I'm doing is I'm just taking same color, same technique, and just going straight over it with a second coat, and it will deepen up that color. Okay. And I'm going to blow dry it just so, okay, see how wide this is? I'm going to put my finger right here. I haven't moved my finger. Now you can see about half of it. And it's pretty much all gone. All we're waiting on is for the rest of that to dry because it's dry to the touch because of the blow dryer. Once it's bone dry, it's completely gone. So that's where it started. So you can still kind of see the shininess of it. That shiny will go away. When the shiny is completely gone, just like on this side, all you see is the shaded side. You don't see any of that floating medium. All right, so the last thing we got to do is we got to shade this right here. And you want everything to be bone dry, which is what we just did. Keep dropping that. That's okay, though. We're going to go across this. And then we're going to get into our stenciling. Stenciling and shading that bumper. So we're going to load our floating medium up. We're getting very close to being done, baby girl.
Mommy.
Yes.
You're almost done. You're almost done now. After you're almost done, after you're almost done, I want to watch after you're done.
Yeah.
After you're done, can you give me Hauser? Can you give me?
You want hot sauce and chips?
Yeah, please. After you're done, actually pizza rolls.
You want pizza rolls?
Yep. Instead.
I can make that happen.
And I want something else after you're done.
Okay, well, we can talk. Yeah, we can talk about that when I'm done, though.
And mommy, after you're done painting, I'm gonna tell you something I'm gonna watch. It'll be a TV show, okay?
What is it?
Snag was my favorite movie. Snag, what is it?
What is it? It's your favorite Elsa Barbie?
No, that's a boring TV show.
You love that TV show.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit now?
I'm taller, so I won't get it.
Oh, because you're taller, we no longer like Elsa Barbie, which is just a Barbie show that's based off of Elsa.
We're on the case. You know that.
Oh, we're on the case. We're on the case.
We're on the case. And their helpers, Mickey and Chiku.
Okay.
So I want to watch.
Okay. After I'm done painting. Well, we're getting close. We need to do our bumper. All right, so there's our truck. Our truck is pretty much done. All we have to do is add some fireflies, but we're going to do that all at one time because our fireflies kind of go throughout all the different colors. We need to shade our bumper, our tires, and add our stencil. The bumper and tires go really, really fast. So we're going to take our storm gray. And take our storm gray. Okay, just one drop of it and one drop of our sky gray. We don't want our bumper to be super, super dingy looking. We just want it to be a shade darker than our sky gray. We're just going to mix it together. Okay. Okay, there we go. Again, floating medium. We're going to go over here. Make sure that it stays crystal clear. Pick up a good bit of it. Going to dip our toe in that storm gray, sky gray mixture. And go back and forth. Okay, you want to get it on both sides of your brush. And after you get it on both sides, you can just load the one side. All right, so we're just going to go around. Like I like to call it around town. It just makes it look like it's curved. That's all it's doing. It just makes it look like it's curved. Well, I'm glad you're hanging out with me. I'm glad that you got to catch me live today. We're just practicing some of the techniques that we've been working on. Just, y'all know me. I love to shade all the things. I like to add dimension. I like to up my painting game, but I like to share what I know with everybody. So if I'm going to practice, why not practice with my friends? There we go. Got a little over in the blue. That's okay. Remember, when your brush feels like it's getting a little dry, pick up floating medium. When you feel like there's not enough paint on your brush, pick up paint. But just remember, you take it back to that. Take it back to your, what I call the prime station. You start priming it. Loading it is what I guess the technical term is. And if you don't like how dark it is, if you feel like it could be darker, you're right, it could be darker. But don't change the color of the paint. Add a second layer. I can't drive that point home hard enough. A lot of people feel like, oh, that's not dark enough. Well, really, it's the perfect shade. It's just not enough of it. And you don't want to go too heavy-handed with shading right out the gate because it'll look messy. You really want to build it up. I like it because it can be built up and it can be brought out. So say I don't want to necessarily do it on this design, but I can demonstrate it. Let's see. Say I want this shade to go further into the design. I can do this, which is just the brush width, right? And which is my favorite style. But you can also walk it in. So I've got it laid down now, and now I can walk it in and really bring it in. It's going to soften it up a little bit. Okay, so this is just on the edge like I like to do. But say you want it to be further in, you can either grab a bigger brush to get a bigger width of how much medium you can put on there, or you can walk it in. The only problem with walking it in is you're going to be cleaning your brush more often. When floating over these chalkier colors like grays and whites, you'll be adding more floating medium to your brush than normal. More often, really, is what I should be saying. Like every time I go to load my brush, I'm pretty much adding more floating medium to my brush. And it's just because those chalkier colors soak up what's on your brush. Okay, so there it is. There's our bumper. See if I can get that in the, there's our bumper. Now let's do our tires, and then we'll do our stencil. So I am in dirty blue water, which is nobody's friend. It's just as bad as dirty red water. So I'm going to use Raylan's water because it's got a bunch of whites and yellows in it. Okay, for our tires, we are going to use black, okay? So I'm going to load my brush up with the floating medium yet again. Stay over here where all my priming is, just so I can double check. So all I did was dipped it in the floating medium and came over to a clean part of my palette and made sure I don't have any paint hiding in my brush. I still have just straight from the bottle black over here where we mix those blues. Okay. There we go. And do right there underneath the bumper. I know you can't see that, but I'm about to demonstrate it on this one right here. So everything I do on this tire, just know I'm doubling it on the bottom tire. There we go. So we're just getting a nice little shade. That bumper casts a shadow on it. That's why we did it there. All right, now we're going to go. This is already dry down here, so I'm going to go ahead and go around the bottom of the tire. So the U shape of the tire. And I'll show you in just a second on that other tire where you can see without having to flip it around too much. It goes on pretty fast. go. One more little swipe to make all my ends meet. Not going to matter too much on this design because we are going to add wreath rails and all this is going to get hidden. Honestly, I just want, for those that are just going to be painting this as a door hanger, I want to make sure I give a good tutorial, good explanation as to how I paint the tires. So I'm just going around the entire tire. I'm pretty sure this is the last little bit of shading. There we go. Okay. Now, nope, I lied. We need a shade behind the license plate. But other than that, yeah, this is the last little bit of shading. So because that is gray and white, the blue will show, so I need to make sure I double clean since I have dirty water. Super, super duper dirty water. I'm going to pick up floating medium for the last time. And then I'm going to pick up the same mixture that we used for the bumper. I'm just going to go underneath this license plate. Just going to make the license plate pop. Just going to make the license plate pop. Y'all ready for some stencils, some highlights, and then some fireflies. Fireflies are going to be very last because you want the fireflies to sit on top of the highlight too. Hey, Deidre. I'm late to the party. Hey, it's a super long party today, so it's a good one to be late to. So we're done with our shading palette. That's all the shade. Look at all those shading colors. That's all our shading. Let's do some stencil action. So because we're doing stencil, let's bump y'all up just a little bit. Since we're doing a stencil, make sure that that's well in shot. Let's blow dry everything just for good measure. We're just going to get it a quick blow dry. Okay. Now our stencil I cut out with my Cricut. Now I have a Cricut Maker and I have a Cricut Joy, and on little projects like this, I just bust out the Joy. That's all I did today. I've got a makeup sponge. I like to get my makeup sponges from the Dollar General. They have the best in store. Now there's some really good ones on Amazon. These are just really good in store. I'm going to take this color that we mixed together for the shading, the black and the blue, because I don't want it to necessarily be straight black. I don't want it to necessarily be straight black. I'm going to dab the majority of this off. I'm just using what I got. This has the consistency of memory foam. So that's the best way I can describe it. I'm doing super light, not going in with a lot of pressure. There's very little paint on my sponge. I might even bust out a piece of painter's tape. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll bust out a piece of painter's tape from a paint cart. Just so my stencil doesn't move on me. There will be times where I kind of want to use my free hand to hold down the little flyaway parts, like the insides of letters, places of the stencil where it likes to pop up, like this H. The inside of the H wants to pop up. So let's try and use our free hand to hold that down so that we don't get as much bleeding. Now, if I wanted this to be perfect, pristine, crisp, beyond crisp lines, I would use stencil material, right? I'm using something that's not intended for this use. I'm trying to ask it to do something that it was never made to do, right? It's going to do it, but it may not be the most perfect, crispest lines that we could get, but it's going to be pretty close. It's going to be good enough for me. I'd rather have something fun at this point, right? By the time we get to the stencil, if the stencil isn't the showstopper of the design, what does it matter? This is literally just going to drive home the message of what this is, right? So this is just saying hello. The showstopper is all this up here, right? So we spent the time and the effort on the part that's most important. Now we're just doing, we're just finishing up. These are finishing touches here. So does it have to be perfect? Absolutely not. Do we still need to try our best? Absolutely, yes. So when it comes to this stencil right here, it's not the showstopper of the design. So I'm just getting it done. So that's why I used a file folder. So this is just a Dollar Tree file folder that over in the paint studio, I've been testing out different affordable, easy to find things that can be used as stencil material. And this is just a manila file folder. I've been buying the legal size because you get more bang for your buck. It's a couple extra inches per file folder. And it cuts out really good on your Cricut. All you have to do is use your glitter cardstock or your heavy cardstock settings. And here we go. So I'm going to take this to my caddy over here. I actually have little hooks on my caddy that are magnetic. And I'm going to let it just dry, air dry. That stencil's going to be able to be used a million times. Hold on one second. I'll get you pizza rolls in just a second.
Is that my palette?
No, that one's your palette. Yeah. She's trying to expedite her pizza rolls. And we're right at lunchtime, so she should be good. She'll be okay. We got a couple more steps and she'll be good to go. Well, thank you. I think it's a cutie patootie myself. So I'm going to take a little flat brush. Not flat brush. I'm going to take a little liner brush. If I can find a liner brush right here. I'm going to take a little liner brush. I'm going to take that mixture of paint. And I'm just going to fill, I'm not a fan of bridges in my lettering. Not a fan at all. I like my lettering to be solid. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the gaps of this E. And this O with a liner brush. Takes just a second. There we go. All done. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Stand by. Got paint water on my design. There we go. Had an old baby wipe that was already dry. We wiped it up. We're good. All right. So I don't want to use blow dryer on that because that was really wet paint right there. Our next step is going to be highlighting. So we're going to take our highlighting brushes. These are special brushes, okay? Not in the sense that they're expensive. They are special brushes because I feel like they get the job of highlighting done better. And I have been saving this little tidbit for the very end of our time together today, I have a set of them. All 3 of the ones that I like to use. I have a set of them that I want to gift away to one person that spreads the good word. So if you've already spread the good word that we are live today and we went over all these really cool tips and tricks, I want to be able to gift away one set of these special brushes that do highlighting. Okay, I have the this one is more of a precise flat brush. This one is a fluffier shading brush, and this one right here is a domed shading brush, and I love them so much. Now I will tell you the secret of them. They're not expensive. They're not even actual paint brushes. They're makeup brushes. Okay, they're makeup brushes, but they're very specific makeup brushes that get the job done. So spread the good word that we are live today, and we went over so many good tips and tricks, and I will share a set of these brushes with one of my crafty friends today. If you're wondering who got what is the word? Who was gifted the message in a bottle from our last gift away? Because I don't like to call it a giveaway. I like to gift things. So all I do is I take the white that we're using, I put it on the very tip of this dome, and I buff it off. I try to buff off as much as possible. Much as possible. I just go all the way down. Okay. And with the lightest touch, I'm just adding some buffing and buffing it on. Okay. Super light touches. So these are makeup brushes that just get the job done well. So if you spread the good word that we are live today, then you get entered into a random selection of one person that will be gifted a set of these amazing brushes. They're awesome. They're Wet n Wild. That's the brand. They're Wet n Wild. They're super soft. I take my finger and on these bigger sections, I'll take my finger and kind of soften it up, just like you would your concealer, right? I'm way back on the back of my brush so that I can keep it super light and airy, and I can widen the brush strokes. Okay. Let's see. You can add as much as you want. You can take away. I'd much rather you do light coats and add than have to figure out how you're going to take it away, though. Okay. But I will show you that there is a way that you can take away. So this is an Old Baby wipe. I just redampened it. And I'm just kind of buffing it out. That does take it away. It tones it down just a little bit. So if you need to go back over it, you can. There we go. So that adds a little bit of definition by not taking away the, I'm adding very little paint. I'm kind of stippling it into my brush. And then I'm going to start dragging it down by buffing it into the brush. I'm going to go over here. Going to add some to this. You're not going to see it immediately. It's going to build up. Actually, you can't see that at all because we're off screen here. Let's go down right here. So the people, I actually ended up picking two lucky people who were gifted a message in a bottle blank. This was the one that we did last week. It was message in a bottle, and I had ready to ship, and they're going out today to the post office. And they've already been notified. They've already given me their mailing addresses. It was Wanella Thompson and Karen Moore. So congratulations, Wanella and Karen. But this time, I'm going to be gifting a set of these brushes. I'm gifting a whole set. All 3. So I keep trying to hold it like a regular paintbrush. You really want to hold it on these bigger sections. You want to hold it on the back end of your brush. Okay. So we're going to add white. We're going to stipple it into the brush. And you just to clean these brushes, you would clean them just like any other paintbrush, right? Because we're using it as a paintbrush. We would clean it just like a paintbrush. You go in with light pressure. My bristles are barely bending to the wood. I'm just kind of feather-like circular strokes. And I'm just going along where in real life, that light would kind of concentrate and bounce off and create a highlight. So on the top and off to the right, or on the top and off to the left, just depending on if your light's over here, if your light's over here. Well, my light's over here, so it's coming in, right? Actually, I'm lying. I want it to be over here because I want it to bounce off of this mason jar. So I'm going to base my light off of this mason jar. So I'm going to add a little bit more over here. All right. I'm going to add a little bit on this tire and get back up on the back of my brush. Just a little bit. I'm just going to lightly buff it on there. And the good thing about doing this on wood really captures the little bit of paint that's on this brush. It grabs it. So you don't have to do too much buffing. If this was a slick surface, it would be a little bit harder. You would have to build the texture with your paint for it to really grab. This is a great technique to add the pink of cheeks. The paint studio doesn't know it, but next month there will be cheeks involved, so that we will be blushing some cheeks. And this brush will be an amazing addition to their arsenal of paintbrushes, their collection. Alrighty. Let's add a little bit to the base of the very tip top. So instead of going into the paint itself, I'm just going into that little buffing, a little buff. I'm just going across the top in the corner, going down a little bit. So if you are just now hopping on, what we're doing is I'm showing you how to highlight with one of these really cool brushes that I have, and I'll be gifting away an entire set of them. And all you have to do, and Facebook tells me who does it, they accumulate a list for me. All you have to do is SHRE this right here while we're live. And this time tomorrow, I will be selecting a random person from that list to be gifted an entire 3-piece set of these brushes. They're not fancy paint brushes. They're not super expensive. In fact, they're not really expensive at all. But I do know some people that are having a hard time finding them. So I want to be able to gift it. So say you get a little too much and you want to kind of break it down, take an old baby wipe. Look at all that blue that I just transferred. It kind of softens up. Say you get a little too harsh with your highlight. I'm doing just white. I'm just adding a little bit of white. I'm stippling it into the brush, and then I'm going to take my brush and go in circles and drag it until I barely see any paint on the paper. Okay. Then I'm going to hold my brush all the way at the very end. I'm going to lightly, in circular motions, and dust it on there. My bristles are barely touching the wood. They're not bending. It's kind of a take on a dry brush technique. Okay, I'm going to take my baby wipe and kind of just soften it up a little bit. Now, before you go to seal this, you're going to want to dust any baby wipe off, okay? There we go. Soften it up just a little bit. Now, I'm going to turn this off to the side. I'm going to get all these brushes out of the way because we're not using them right now. I dropped one. That's okay. It's mine. We're going to take our highlight brush. We will be using this again for the for the fireflies. Now I'm just going in this very corner, and I'm just kind of highlighting this corner. I'm kind of going in a comma like. I'm just barely dusting on there. I'm just highlighting this corner. Okay, I'm going to do it to the other corner as well. This kind of makes, going circular motions, it doesn't look so harsh. I'm just kind of giving it a little bounce of light, just a little bounce of light. All right, come over here. There's actually a good bit of paint in here. So if you notice, I'm not always going back and picking up paint. I'm just building it up. It's just like the shading. You can build it up by continuing to brush over it. See? You want to make sure on these bigger sections, you kind of soften on the very ends of where you stop. You want to make sure you stop on a very soft spot. You get kind of heavier here in the center of it. See, I am going to pick up a little bit of more white. There we go. Stepped away. Were those Wet n Wild makeup brushes? Yes, Debbie, these are Wet n Wild makeup brushes. They're specific ones. There's a whole line of these brushes. But they don't tell you on the side. All they tell you is that they're Wet n Wild. They don't tell you what kind. They just tell you that they're Wet n Wild. All right, so now let's do it on our mason jar and our leaves. So we're going to add some more white because mine's getting kind of dried out. I'm going to stipple it up here, and I'm going to start bringing it down. Okay. I'm going to add just a little bit of highlight here. It's going to take longer for it to show up on this mason jar because this mason jar is already a lot lighter compared to the truck itself. Okay, so we're going to come back up on the back of our brush. Start with a smaller brush stroke. I'm going to bring it in, out this way. I see some people doing the doing the little surprise emoji. They're like, I didn't know you could do that with a makeup brush. Makeup brushes are just like paintbrushes. The good thing about a makeup brush is that they're softer. So when you want to go in with a soft touch like this, you want to go in with a soft touch, you really need something that has super soft bristles. And my sable hair brushes, even though they're synthetic, and this is synthetic, right? So they're going to have similar brush care, if not the exact same. All this does is look at it. It makes it just pop. It's a subtle step, but it's such, I mean, it just adds so much. If you're really wanting to step up your painting game and add some really cool techniques, this is one of those really cool techniques. This is one of those really cool tips and tricks. It just makes that mason jar pop. Okay. And we use the exact same color to shade the entire thing, right? Now, what we could have done is we could have made another shade of blue to shade this. We could have ghosted out our blue for our truck blue, the Royal Navy. We could have ghosted it out. Totally could have done that. But the white did just fine. Just a little layer of white. We're putting such a light layer that you don't necessarily know it's white. You just know that light is bouncing off of it. All right, now let's do our grass blades. Now I am going to change brushes. I'm not necessarily going to put that in the water. This is that fluffier dome brush. Don't know the exact, if I do have one in packaging. The only place that it tells you what it is for, like is it a powder brush? Is it an eyeshadow brush? Is it a crease brush? You know, the only place it tells you is on the packaging, but once you throw away the packaging, you no longer know what these are for. So I call this the fluffy dome. It's like a really fluffy chisel is what it is. Not chisel, filbert. It's like a super fluffy filbert. And with just feather-like strokes, I'm going to kind of concentrate on the very tip top of each curve of each grass blade. Okay. I'm going to try and concentrate as best I can without getting into the blue. Okay, I'm going to pick up a little bit more white. I can use a little bit more paint in there. Okay, and I'm going to go on every grass blade. Not every single one's going to get as much attention because this one right here is technically underneath this one, but it's still got a little bit of light, right? So as long as if you SHRE this video, if you spread it into the interwebs, then you are entered into winning an entire set, a 3-piece set of these brushes that I like to use to highlight. I have a whole set that's going to go out. A whole set, a whole 3-piece set. Like I said, they're not fancy. There's nothing fancy about, although they are really nice. They will hold up. They've held up for a while. Now, there's another way I like to paint, specifically grass and leaves and all the foliage to get nice textured shading all in one stroke. And that is messy painting. Having multiple shades of green and white and all that on your brush. But when you go into a lot of shading, when you plan to do a good bit of shading on your design, I'd rather do this technique to highlight instead of a messy paint. Okay, so let's do this one. Remember, we're concentrating on the very tip top of the curve. So if there's a curve in it, that's where we're focusing. Okay, and we're just going in I'm just going in long brush strokes along that curve. Okay. Flip my brush over. There's some more paint on that other side. And the more brush strokes you do, the more it shows up. Where we did circular brush strokes on the big flat areas, I'm just doing in the shape of the grass blade, kind of a straight, but it's curved. It's the same shape as the grass blade. And see how fast we did we highlighted this entire truck? One, because we didn't change colors, right? It's all white. It's all titanium white, also known as snow white, which I'm out of. I need to add 1 drop. And we're using just drops. So I'm just dipping into the white. I'm pouncing it into my brush. And I'm doing circular motions all the way down till I barely see any paint on my brush being left behind on the palette. And I'm just brushing it on to give it a nice little highlight where the highlight is supposed to be. Okay. Now, I will say, if you have any paint ridges or thick paint, this is where it's going to show up. It will catch on thick paint. So I have some really nice brush strokes going on here. It's not like it's noticeable to me because I know they're there, but it won't be super noticeable to like the naked eye. There we go. Since we still have some on our brush, let's go ahead and highlight this just a little bit more. Gosh, I just love how the mason jar pops. It just really makes it pop. A little bit up there just to kind of, all right, let's add just a little bit right here on the very tip top curve of our mirrors here. Okay, even though there's some shading there, That's to show the curve of it. Let's show the highlight. Just a nice little light little dusting. Okay. We're not going to do any in our mirror. We're going to leave it nice, bright, poppy. I'm going to bring in the third brush. Okay. This is the really small filbert. This is the thin filbert, right? And I'm going to add some of the white, pounce it in. We want to get it good in those bristles and then buff it out. Okay. And then I want to go in right here where there's a good bit of flatness to this thread. So right here, I'm just kind of scrubbing it on. It's dry brushing at its finest. I'm just going to scrub it on. This is going to add dimension to that rim. Oh, that I didn't buff that out. It's going to add dimension to that rim and really make it pop. Okay, we're going to do the threads that go around. We're going to do the same thing. The reason I switched to this brush, it's super thin. It's like super, super, super thin. It's got a good width to it. It's got a good width to it this way, but if you turn it sideways, it disappears. That's how thin it is. And we're just going to put it right here. I'm just going to, right where it's kind of the chubbiest back here, and right here where it's the chubbiest, that's where that light's going to catch it. The reason we're doing all our highlighting before we do our fireflies is because those fireflies are going to get a little bit of highlight too, but it's going to be really hard to fussy paint all this. Even if you cover it with a firefly later, it's going to be hard to fussy paint all this highlight in underneath a firefly that's kind of buffed on as well, right? Now, you've seen me do a firefly with a polka dot sponge, right? Today, we're not doing that. I'm going to show you how you can use these brushes. So I'm just adding some white to this blue to kind of brighten it up. Makes that shading pop even more. The different shapes of these three brushes give you two totally different. See how it's brighter here faster? It's because we went kind of in a straight line and we just kind of buffed it on. But it's all dry brushing because there's no liquid other than just the teeniest, tiniest little bit of paint on our brush. There's hardly any liquid on this brush. This little spot right here, and I want to do that, and then we're done with this. And then we're going to get into our fireflies. I don't even know if I have enough white on this palette. Yeah, I do. There we go. We just picked up a good bit. There we go. All right. I will wash all those when I wash all my brushes. I don't necessarily want this paint to dry in there, even though they are dry brushings. I want them to stay clean. So we're going to wash them as soon as we're done painting here. But I have one last step, and it is this lemon yellow. So we're going to take this lemon yellow. Okay. We're going to do the same technique with the really fluffy one. Okay. Not the fluffy filbert, just the really fluffy one. Add a little bit of yellow, lemon yellow. Okay. Add it to our palette. We're going to pounce it into our brush. We're going to scrub, 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 scrub. Scrub, 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 scrub. I'm rotating my brush around to make sure I'm not getting any hidden paint in there. I'm going to start adding fireflies. And you can start adding fireflies just like this. Start with a good concentration, and then once you get a nice little circle going, start lightly buffing it out. Start getting a little wider and wider. That gives you the perfect little halo. There's our firefly. Now, these are not going to be perfect circles like it would be with a polka dot sponge. Now, if you want to see what it would look like with a polka dot sponge, let's do that. All right, so I've got Dollar Tree polka dot sponges. We're going to use the smallest one. We're going to use the lemon yellow. Let me just go ahead and put one there. Okay, so if you want to map out your fireflies and then buff on their halo, that's another trick. So say you really do want perfect little fireflies, take your polka dot sponge, dip it in that lemon yellow, knock the majority of it off. Okay, there we go. There we go. I'm just looking at my mock-up, trying to get it as close to the mock-up as possible with these fireflies. You can also use banana cream. You can use Sunny Day. Those are more pastel yellows. This is more of a brighter yellow. In the bottle, they all look kind of the same, but this is definitely a more bright yellow. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So there we go. That's our polka dot. We're going to take our brush and get it nice and dry with a little bit of yellow on there. Actually, let's blow dry. Let's blow dry our polka dots. We don't want to smear our polka dots. We want to add to. There we go. Now let's add to them. We're just like we did with our white, we're just adding a halo, doing it in circular motions, starting like we're drawing circles around and we're going to go as wide as we want to make that halo extend. They don't have to be completely solid halos. What you can do is you can, there can be a little bit of, this one's going to be the hardest one to show up because it's already on a light surface, but it's still going to show up. All this is doing is softening up the harsh circle of the polka dot sponge. Okay, there we go. The yellow will look different than the dry brushing of the white. So like right here, where we've got all that highlight from the white, the yellow does look different. So don't worry. So I start by drawing circles around the circle itself. Let that get nice and concentrated. And then once I start seeing a really good halo around it, I start spreading it out just a little bit. Just like that. I am going to deepen that one up a little bit. Doesn't take a lot of paint. Just takes a little bit of buildup. You let it dry. You're like, that one could be a little brighter. Come back in. Go in a little bit more. There's more paint on your brush than you think. And it brightens up. This one needs a little bit more yellow. There we go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And now we are completely done with these brushes. I'm going to throw them in my paint water so that they can get washed with everything else. I just don't want to let them live in paint water. I want to wash them, get them out. I want to also put my polka dot sponge in my paint water, let them wash, get them out. Y'all are going to want to come and hang out with me on Thursday because we're going to finish up the wreath rails. We're going to put some bows, and I haven't decided what all. We may do some tubing. I don't know if you've ever messed with decorative mesh tubing. We're probably going to add some of that just to add some funkiness. But until then, I hope you enjoyed our tutorial today. Don't forget, you can put gnome in the comments to get the free printable template for our top hat gnome. You can share this out into the interwebs and be entered into a drawing to win a set of the 3-piece buffing highlight brushes that I was using. They're just makeup brushes, but they're a specific set of makeup brushes. Thank you, Wanda. Thank you, Debbie. I'm totally in love with this. I will be painting this and using these techniques for sure. Well, Sheila, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Literally, let's see, literally me after hanging. Oh, she has the mind blown emoji. She goes, this is literally me hearing you using makeup brushes for highlights. Well, don't we use makeup brushes to highlight our face? They're soft. That's the one thing about them. They are soft. And that's what gives them this. Look at that. Look at that. It just makes me so happy. Did I miss? Did I miss where we can purchase your shading brushes? Wherever they sell Wet and Wild. I sometimes find them at the Dollar Tree. I find them at Walmart. You can find them at, I want to say Target. They sell Wet and Wild brushes. Look, they're the white and pink. The white and pink ones. Making sure I did not miss anything. Alrighty. Well, that is everything I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope you use one of the techniques that we shared today. Like I said, there are so many little tips, tricks, techniques. I'm about to seal this, and I'm going to seal it with some Liquitex brush on sealer. If you want it to be UV protected, I highly recommend the Krylon triple thick clear glaze in glossy. That will UV protect it. The Liquitex does not UV. It is outdoor resistant, but it is not UV. So pretty. I love this tutorial so much. Thank you. You're welcome, Leanne. I will see y'all Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, where we will be adding the bows and all the fanciness to the bottom of the wreath rails. If you would like any of the links to where you can purchase a blank, the template, the JPEG, or the color list, you don't have to purchase the color list. I'll freely give that to you just out of my own good heart. Then put the word Firefly in the comments, and I'll come back in a little bit and link all that for you so that you don't have to go looking for it yourself. All right. I will talk to y'all later. Love ya. Bye.